So the last company that was in was Pika 8. I really was looking forward to the conversation, and I didn't get what I was expecting out of it, but I think that's okay because Pika 8 is a white box networking software provider, not hardware, just software, because that's the idea, right? Is that software should run on any switch, mostly, not literally any switch, but switches that are designed to be white boxed networking switches. So I was hoping to see more of the hardware. At least that was in my head before the session started. And then once we got into it for a couple minutes, I was, oh yeah, you're probably not going to really see the hardware because that's the point. You don't care about the hardware, you care about the software. And they had their hardware compatibility list. There were three names on there. Dell is the one that sticks out the most to me. But the more they walked through the platform, the more I wanted to see. And they only had an hour with us today. I wish they had maybe 90 minutes, upwards of 2 hours, because the stuff that they had in there was genuinely cool. So the licensing was very straightforward. It's a single license and the same software. The thing that I found really cool about that licensing, that software licensing, is let's say you've got 10 switches and they're generation 1 hardware. I'm just making up terms. But then it's a couple years down the road and you're ready to dump that generation 1 hardware for generation 2 hardware. That software license still applies to the next hardware that you replace it with. And I don't know why that feels novel or sounded novel, but I really appreciated it because when you buy normal switches, when you throw the switch out, there's nothing that you carry along that's going to work with you or that's going to work on the next switch. And maybe you can save some optics or, the power cables are still compatible or the network cards or the cables still work. But the software, that's generally gone. But with the white box software, since they don't care about the hardware, they care about the software, you still keep your license for that software. It perpetually, you own it. That is yours. It's like the old school Microsoft days before they decided, and everybody else started to license, Word. You could buy a copy of Word 97 and it would work on the next computer and the next computer. So it was really refreshing to see that that's not dead. That's still alive and you can get it in an actively developed networking platform. So that was really cool. Their documentation, I didn't dig too deep in their documentation. Jeremy Schulman was looking for something very specific. It was PTP, Precision Time Protocol, which I'm not familiar with. But he asked them, hey, do you guys support PTP? And they immediately shot back. Go look at our docs. I think it was docs.pika8.com. And the cool thing about that is it wasn't behind, I don't know if paywall's the right term, but it wasn't behind a login screen, that it was there and you can just get to it. So I've dealt with so much Cisco in my life, and that used to be the way that Cisco was. You could just go look at documentation or go to the forums, and then at some point in time they said, no mas, no more. You've got to log in, you've got to have an account to view this stuff. And that wasn't the case with them. You could just go look at it, check it out. It was some really cool stuff. Um, there's something in there, and this was again Jeremy Schulman who got into this, was that they basically cloned very closely Juniper's commit confirm when it comes to applying configuration. And for a lot of people, for a lot of engineers out there, I don't want to say that's the only deciding feature why you might buy one thing or something else, but it heavily influences depending on how your organization or how your team works. So they had that in there, which I thought was pretty cool. Then they got into their cloud. Cloud might not be the right word, but just their orchestration platform. And I was pleasantly surprised how feature packed it was, considering. I hate to say considering that it's it's white box switching, but just considering that it's not Cisco, it's not Juniper, it's not Arista, that you could do a lot of stuff in there. And the automation part of it was really what caught my attention. So I'm going to speak real specifically here to DNA Center because when it comes to this level, it's the platform that I know the best. And you can do a lot of really interesting automation things inside of DNA Center. So you've got a switch, it comes online and it does a 0-day provision, and then you do a day one provision and you push down all these configurations, but you need to learn that scripting language in order to be able to do that. And it's not a terribly difficult scripting language, but you've got to play with it like you do anything that's new until you get the hang of it. And you still have to get pretty programmatic to make it work. So if you need variables, you have to know how to define the variables. And then thankfully, it's smart enough to know that DNA Center is smart enough to know that you inserted a variable into a script and it can prompt you for it. So it works. But inside of Pika 8's platform, they basically had a little tree that you would navigate and just click the things that you wanted to do, and it would bring them over. So where I think that's really helpful is that if you're new to Pika 8 and you don't know their commands, like how their commands work, they're sort of just all right there nested, and you drag in and drop what you need. And you don't have to worry about, well, how do I define variables, which honestly, once you know how to do it inside DNA Center, it's not that hard. But it was all there in a very drag and drop, click friendly way of building it out. And then once you have your templates or you have some sort of config that you're going to push, it would do a test push into a virtual switch that lives inside the platform so that they can verify what you're trying to send is actually valid. Because even though you have the tree, you could still drag and drop things out of line or put things together in a way they don't make sense to the platform. But it was just built in right there. And they kind of kept going on this. It's software, guys. You can run it. I mean, okay, you can run a lot of stuff in GNS3 these days, but that was like sort of part of the points. They said, here, run it. More importantly, we support it. We like this. This is the kind of stuff that we have in there. And then just the rest of the platform was very well feature packed. I was very impressed. Just all the different API things that you can do with it, all of the firmware upgrades, and I mean, being honest, it was all there. It was a DNA Center counterpart. It is a Cloud Vision counterpart. It was really refreshing to see. So these days, with hardware shortages being what they are, or just delay times, I think I would give Pika 8 an honest shake in the right environment. I'm not putting it in my data center, not today. But a small branch office, I think that would be a good place to check it out. Or maybe not even a branch office, maybe just a little bit larger office that has a couple of IDFs that you can kind of test it out. And it was really cool, really slick. Again, I don't know why I thought I was going to see more on the hardware side when it came to a to a white box switch conversation, but really nice stuff. I really recommend you check them out.